So we're going to talk a little bit about ultra high field, and there's probably no area of MR that I think lends itself more to AI applications. And as you'll see, because these magnets have the ability to acquire it at such high resolution, that's really what AI requires. The less ambiguity the data has that you feed it, the better analyses it can perform for us. So I'll point out various areas as we move along where I think AI is beginning to make some inroads in other areas, but they'll very soon be extended to high field. So the goal today is to familiarize you with the relative advantages and challenges of high field MR, and there are significant ones that we need to be aware of, but none that I think are insurmountable, and many of which I think you will agree have already been surmounted very satisfactorily. We want to examine various applications of high field MR imaging, including anatomic in physiologic imaging, and that's really one of the exciting areas. We're just going beyond anatomy, which is exciting in itself, but now really beginning to spread out those spectra in MRS, etc. So these are the topics that we'll cover. We're going to define what ultra-high field means. We're going to look at some hardware applications and enhancements, advantages of ultra-high field. We're going to look at some examples of anatomic imaging, functional MRI at ultra-high field with an emphasis on bold imaging. We'll look at cerebral vascular reactivity and its impact on bold. And that's really kind of a new and exciting area that I think you'll find very interesting. We'll look a little bit at sodium imaging, a little bit of the basics, resting state networks, look at microvascular MRA, which is another very interesting area, particularly for the vasculitides, lupus, cerebral vasculitis, etc. MR spectroscopy, oxygen 17, and MR PET systems, and we'll conclude with just a couple of brief statements. So ultra-high field is any scanner that is operating at 7T or above. And now there's talk of even scanners operating at 9, 11, and maybe even 14. Currently, there are over 90 installed systems worldwide. This is work by Cosotini, who did a survey, and Fagan as well. This is data that just appeared this past year. All of these scanners are able to provide multi-parametric MR, very high resolution structural MR imaging, beautiful functional techniques, and fast and ultra-fast imaging, which opens up some exciting avenues as well for temporal analysis of physiologic changes in the body. Hardware developments, there's really been a lot going on by way of ultra-high field MR with novel coil developments and techniques that specifically focus on the homogenization of the transmit field, because that's really where the challenges come in. These are very short wavelengths of the signals, and you really need these multi-array channels for transmit and receive to kind of limit that B1 homogeneity that's kind of the hallmark of these higher field magnets. And that's because there's really an accentuation of dielectric effects at those higher fields, and that's of concern. Multiple channel receiver coils for parallel imaging, algorithms for higher order B1 shimming, and these are all things that really require an outstanding technical team. These machines are like high performance Ferraris. You can't just run them, you've got to tune them. And you've got to tune them every day and make sure that they're running properly. You really need to improve that homogeneity every time that patient gets into the scanner. High field amplification of susceptibly weighted imaging to take advantage of that enhanced susceptibly weighted imaging. It can be a liability or it could be an advantage. Novel patch antenna designs for acceptable transmit homogeneity as well. And then images with high field resolution and high SNR is the ultimate result. That's our goal, and that's what these scanners are